All right, so buckle up because we are diving deep into Griffin de Luce's world. Specifically, his take on the metamodern era. And, we're talking about a potential societal shift here, one that's being shaped by things like AI, blockchain, all that cutting-edge stuff, and a completely new way of thinking about, well,
value.
Value, exactly.
Collaboration,
yes.
Okay.
Get ready. Because, honestly, as we unpack DeLuce's vision for the future, I think there are going to be some serious aha moments. I mean, for me, getting into this, it was like, wait, hold on.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that DeLuce isn't your typical Silicon Valley guru. I mean, this is somebody who's been in the trenches advising giants, JP Morgan, MasterCard, Apple, Microsoft, you name it. He's probably been in the room.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking Wall Street suits to brainstorming with, like, the who's who of Silicon Valley.
Absolutely.
Okay, now that's an interesting journey. We got to unpack this whole thing. We brought in an expert to help us break it all down.
I'm happy to be here. We've got excerpts from his book, background on his organization, metaassociates.org.
Yeah, DeLuce is fascinating. What clicked for DeLuce?
Mm-hmm.
What made him go from those boardrooms to building this whole metamodern thing?
Well, from what I've gathered, it seems like his fascination with open source software was a major turning point for him.
Interesting.
Think back to Mark Andreessen.
Oh, yeah.
Netscape, the whole browser wars with Microsoft, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
That kind of sparked his interest early on, but it was really meeting Bill Hambrecht.
The guy behind Google's IPO.
The open IPO, yeah, for Google. That's when things really clicked for him.
Okay, so I'm picking up on a theme here. Open source, open IPO, it's all about breaking down the old way of doing things. Democratizing access to information, technology, even, could you say, wealth?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, DeLuce, he saw firsthand how these open models could completely shake things up, disrupt entire industries, and, importantly, give individuals more power than they've ever had before. And this leads us to Meta Associates.
Right. His brainchild.
Exactly.
This group, this collective of, let's be real, some serious developers and some, big-time players, billionaires, who are all coming together with this idea of building something better, which, I've got to say, great tagline.
Catchy, right.
Very catchy. But what are they actually building? Give us the goods. What are they working on?
So they've got their hands in a lot of different projects, which is really interesting. But I think Vero.co and their work with the World Bank really highlight their approach.
Okay, yeah, Vero.co, that's the social media platform, right?
That is.
I feel like I've heard whispers about it, but what makes it different from, the Facebooks and the Instagrams of the world that we're also kind of, plugged into?
Yeah. Think of Vero.co as social media, but flipped on its head.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, they are totally against selling your data, which right there...
It's a breath of fresh air.
Right. It's huge. And they're all about genuine connection. So you only see posts from people you actually want to be connected with. No algorithms messing with your feed or anything like that.
Interesting.
And here's a kicker. They have a tokenized stock market, but for the users.
Well, hold on. Okay, first of all, no algorithms, no selling my data. That alone is like music to my ears in this day and age. But a tokenized stock market, what does that even mean in this context?
So essentially, it means that users can actually own a piece of the platform.
Really?
Yeah, it's a way for the people who make the network valuable, the users, to actually share in its success.
Wow.
Which, again, is a radical departure from the way these things usually work, where, a few companies at the top take all the spoils.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is with this whole decentralization thing.
100%.
I like that. Okay, so that's Vero.co, but then there's the World Bank project.
Right.
Which seems like a completely different beast altogether.
It does, and it really speaks to the real-world impact that Meta Associates is going for. They've used blockchain technology and mobile money to connect at-risk mothers in Africa directly with aid.
Wow.
And they've cut out all those middlemen.
No kidding. That's incredible. But, we keep throwing around this term metamodern.
Yeah.
You said it a bunch, but I think it's time to really unpack it. What does it actually mean? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's about moving towards a world where technology, particularly AI and blockchain, can help us build systems that are based on transparency, collaboration, and a completely new way of thinking about value.
So it all kind of ties back to that open source idea we were talking about earlier. That's an exciting thought. But how do we ensure that this doesn't just become a playground for those who are already privileged?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And DeLuce argues that it's going to require a shift in our values, a shift from competition and scarcity to collaboration and abundance.
And does a good job of kind of laying out a framework for how we might be able to achieve something like that.
Well, he connects it, too, to things that you wouldn't necessarily think would be connected, like Tolstoy's philosophy.
Exactly.
Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a classic DeLuce thing.
It is, right? It's kind of his trademark.
Tolstoy on money. I mean, who does that? But then he goes on to say that money in this new system is all about consensual commerce.
Which is a really interesting concept.
It is.
Yeah.
What exactly does that even mean?
So imagine a system where every transaction, every interaction you have is based on mutual agreement and everyone being really upfront. But for our listener, let's maybe define some of these things. So what exactly is a permissionless abundance economy?
So imagine an economy where AI unlocks just insane levels of abundance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shattering those traditional barriers, those gatekeepers that decide who gets what.
Okay.
It's really about democratizing opportunity using technology.
So everyone has a shot, no matter their background, no matter where they come from.
Exactly.
I like it.
Leveling the playing field a little bit.
I like it a lot. But how does that play out practically? Like in real life? Jobs, for instance. What happens to jobs in a permissionless abundance economy?
So I think one thing that DeLuce really stresses is that AI has the potential to automate a lot of those tedious tasks. It frees us up to really explore our passions, be more creative, tackle those problems that require that unique human element that AI just can't replicate.
So less time filing, more time creating.
Exactly.
I like the sound of that. But what about the people whose jobs are, maybe automated? What happens to them in this transition?
Right. And I think that's a really important point. And it's something that DeLuce addresses head on.
Okay.
He's not talking about some overnight, upheaval.
Yeah. Right.
All of a sudden, robots take everyone's jobs and, we're all out of work.
Right.
It's about a responsible and ethical shift.
Right.
Right. That prioritizes people.
Yeah.
And he really stresses the need for safeguards. Right? To make sure that everyone benefits from this technological evolution, not just a select few.
Which is interesting, too, because he's coming from, a tech background, but it doesn't feel like he's coming at it from a purely utopian standpoint. He's acknowledging that there are potential downsides that need to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Easier said than done, right?
It's a tall order.
It's like we need a global change of heart.
Sorry.
But how do we even begin to make that happen?
Well, DeLuce believes that education and these open, honest conversations about these emerging technologies are key. And this actually leads us to his work with AIcharter.org.
Okay, hold on. It sounds like a whole other rabbit hole we need to explore.
Oh, it is. It's a big one.
We're going to have to pause here for now, but don't worry, because you'll have to tune in to part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll really unpack AIcharter.org. Well, we're kicking things off with this AIcharter.org thing. Kind of reads like, if the future of AI had a constitution, this would be it.
Right? Definitely setting some ambitious goals. They're almost trying to write the rule book, right, for ethical AI development.
They are, yeah.
To make sure that we don't go down the same road that we did with, say, social media.
Right, which is, cautionary tale.
It is a cautionary tale.
In a lot of ways, right.
Because, there was so much promise there.
Oh, absolutely.
But it seems like things kind of went a little bit sideways.
Yeah, and, AI has the potential to be even more powerful than social media.
Sure.
Right, so it's really important that we get it right.
Yeah.
And that we think about these things in advance before it's too late.
Which is exactly what AI Charter is trying to do, right?
They are.
They're trying to sort of lay that ethical groundwork to make sure that AI is a force for good.
Yeah, imagine tackling something like climate change or poverty with the power of AI.
Yeah, the possibilities are really endless, but we need to make sure it's used responsibly.
All right, so AIcharter.org. I'm hitting this phrase right off the bat. Humanity and machines in harmony. Please tell me this isn't some Terminator scenario we're walking into here.
No killer robots, I promise. It's more about, collaboration over domination. The charter recognizes how powerful AI is becoming, but it's also like a call for ethical development. What if AI actually served humanity instead of the other way around?
Right. Makes you think.
Now, let's pivot a little bit to another big idea that DeLuce talks about, which is data unions.
Right.
What's the deal with data unions? And how do they fit into this whole Permissionless abundance puzzle.
So data unions are really interesting
Okay.
because they kind of flip the script on data ownership,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So instead of these tech giants profiting off of our data,
Right.
we, the individuals,
Yeah.
have collective control over how our data is used and monetized.
So we become stakeholders
Exactly.
in the digital economy,
Exactly.
not just, products
Right.
to be bought and sold.
It's about empowerment.
Okay.
It's about giving individuals a seat at the table.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Right.
I think it makes sense, too, because we're starting to see that, right?
Yeah.
With the pushback against some
Yeah.
of these, tech companies. People are starting to wake up and say, hey, wait a minute. Like, this is my data. Why should you be the one profiting from it?
Exactly.
And this is a way to kind of take back some of that power.
It is.
Okay, so I like it in theory.
Yeah.
But how would these data unions actually function in the real world?
So imagine these decentralized,
Okay.
democratically run organizations
Yeah.
that are governed by their members,
Okay.
the people whose data they're managing.
So it's not like a corporation where you've got, a board of directors that are
Right.
beholden to shareholders.
Right.
This is more like a co-op where the members themselves have a say in how things are run.
It's about collective bargaining power,
Okay.
right? So, for example, you could have patients collectively negotiating with pharmaceutical companies
Okay.
over the use of their health data.
Interesting.
Or you could have consumers demanding better privacy practices from social media companies.
Interesting.
The possibilities are huge.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, it's really about shifting the balance of power in the digital age.
Sign me up.
Right.
Sign me up. But, okay, I've got another question for you.
Okay.
How do these data unions actually work?
So they could use smart contracts on a blockchain,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
To give users transparency and control over how their data is being used and monetized.
So it's all transparent.
It's all out there on the blockchain.
Okay.
You can see exactly what's happening with your data.
Interesting.
It's pretty fascinating stuff.
So it's like we're all becoming little micro entrepreneurs.
Yeah, in a way.
Of our own data.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And they keep saying data is the lifeblood of this whole thing.
Think about it. AI needs data. Like we need, oxygen to breathe. And guess what? We, the users, we're the ones generating all that valuable data.
So what you're saying is we've got more power than we realize.
Exactly. It's about how we shape AI, making sure it benefits everyone, not just like a select few.
This is where things get really interesting. The charter. It mentions a digital exodus from exploitative terms of service. Are they suggesting we, ditch Facebook, Google, the whole 9 yards?
It's a radical idea, but it's gaining traction. Imagine a world where you're not just clicking agree without a second thought. Imagine actually owning and controlling your data.
Okay, but how would that even work?
That's where data unions come in, basically. Users banding together, having a say in how their data is used. Kind of like a collective bargaining agreement, but for your digital life.
So instead of Facebook making bank off our every move, we could actually negotiate for compensation or even say, hey, you can't use our data for that.
Precisely. It's all about giving individuals real power. And this ties directly into that ethical AI development we were talking about, making sure everyone benefits from AI, not just big corporations.
Now, that's what I call a revolution.
And this ties into another concept that DeLuce talks about, which is pseudonymity. Now, this one, I'll be honest, it took me a minute.
Okay.
Because he's arguing that hiding our identities online can actually make the digital world more trustworthy.
Right.
Now, help me understand this.
So think about it like this.
Okay.
Authors have been using pen names for centuries, right?
Sure.
It's not about deception. It's about letting the work speak for itself, free from any biases or preconceived notions that might be associated with their real-world identity.
Okay.
And so pseudonymity online is kind of the same idea.
So it's about judging the content, not the person.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about creating a level playing field where everyone has an equal opportunity to contribute, regardless of their background.
So it's almost like their actions that determine their reputation, not, where they come from or who they know.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a really interesting concept because it kind of upends the way we traditionally think about online identity.
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful idea, especially for people who've been historically marginalized or excluded.
Okay.
Right. It allows them to participate on their own terms.
Okay.
Without having to overcome those pre-existing biases.
So your online reputation is based on merit,
Exactly.
on your contributions.
On your actions.
Not on, who you are in the real world.
Right.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
But, and this is maybe the cynic in me, but doesn't that open the door for bad actors? I mean, if everyone's hiding behind a digital mask, how do we ensure accountability?
That's a great question.
And I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing.
And it's an important one.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not anonymity, it's pseudonymity.
Oh, okay.
So your online persona, while separate from your real-world identity, is still linked to a permanent record of your actions.
Oh,
Think blockchain, right?
Yeah.
A tamper-proof ledger of your digital karma. So every contribution, every interaction is recorded and publicly auditable.
Interesting.
So it's not like you could just, create a new identity and wipe the slate clean every time you mess up.
So it follows you,
Yeah.
but doesn't necessarily define you.
Right.
Because you can earn back that trust, rebuild your reputation by consistently acting in a trustworthy manner.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a really refreshing way to think about online interaction. It acknowledges that, we all make mistakes.
Right. We're all human.
We're all human.
We all do things that we regret.
Right. But it allows for redemption. It allows for growth.
It's about fostering accountability without being unforgiving.
I like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a much more optimistic take, I think, on digital interaction
It is.
than what we're used to.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the permissionless abundance economy.
Right.
We've talked about data unions.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about pseudonymity. And this is all great in theory, but DeLuce isn't all theory, right?
Yeah, no.
He's actually putting these ideas into practice
He is, yeah.
with Vero.co. Which is a really interesting example, I think, of taking these, what some might consider to be kind of abstract ideas, and actually turning them into something tangible.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about Vero.co and how it embodies these principles that we've been talking about.
So Vero.co is a social network that's built on this foundation of user privacy and data ownership.
Yep.
Right? So it's kind of a direct response to some of the concerns that people have with platforms like Facebook.
Right. Where you're the product.
Exactly.
Right. You're not the customer.
Right.
They're selling your attention
Exactly.
to advertisers.
For data.
And your data.
To whoever's buying.
Yeah. Vero.co is trying to be a different kind of social network.
It is, yeah.
One that prioritizes its users and their data.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So it's like a proof of concept.
It is, yeah.
That another way is possible.
Exactly.
It's not just, utopian dreaming.
Right.
It's like, no, you can actually build these things. You can actually create alternatives.
Absolutely.
That are more aligned with people's values.
And I think that's really important because it gives people hope.
Yeah.
Right? It shows them that there's a different way of doing things.
That it's not all doom and gloom.
Exactly.
That there is a path forward.
There is, yeah.
That is more equitable, that is more just, that is more aligned with, what we want the future to look like.
And that we can be active participants in shaping that future.
Exactly. It's not just something that's going to happen to us. Yeah. It's something that we can actually create.
We can build it.
Yeah, we can build it.
We don't have to just sit back and let the tech giants dictate the future.
That's right. We have agency.
We do.
Which brings us to another one of DeLuce's really intriguing ideas, and that's the world game. It's a big one.
Trust me, you won't want to miss it.
So, before we took a pause there, we were really starting to unpack the massive, and I mean massive, implications of this idea of permissionless abundance data unions, about pseudonymity, and the world game in a world, more and more shaped by AI.
Right, and it's a compelling vision.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, I think.
They do.
Because he's talking about a massive online simulation.
Yeah.
Where people from all over the world can come together and collaborate on solving some of the world's most pressing problems.
Exactly.
Climate change. Poverty.
Yeah, it's a really ambitious vision.
Is.
But I think it's an inspiring one, too.
It is inspiring, but it also sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, yeah.
Like, how do you even begin to wrap your head around something like that?
Right. It's a huge undertaking.
It's massive.
It would require, the collaboration of governments, NGOs, corporations, individuals.
Right. Everyone.
All hands on deck.
But I think it's something that we need to strive for.
Because the challenges that we're facing are so complex and so interconnected that we need a way to bring all of our collective intelligence to bear on them.
So it's like a global brainstorming session. Okay, so it's not just a bunch of people sitting around a table,
Oh, no.
talking about their feelings.
It's more than that.
It's using technology to actually model these complex systems.
Exactly.
To predict what's going to happen, to game out different scenarios.
And to experiment with solutions.
Okay.
In a risk-free environment.
Okay, so it's like a giant SimCity.
Kind of, yeah.
But for the real world.
For the real world, yeah.
Where we can test out these solutions without, accidentally blowing up the planet in the process.
Exactly, yeah. It's a safe space to experiment.
Okay, I like it, but it still sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, yeah.
Like, how do we even begin to bridge the divides in our world and foster that level of global cooperation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And I don't think there's an easy answer.
Right.
But I think it starts with a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
From this kind of me versus you mentality.
Right.
To a more we're all in this together kind of approach.
Okay, so it's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Exactly.
Our interconnectedness in a globalized world.
It's about understanding that the challenges we face don't stop at national borders.
Right. They affect us all.
And that the solutions are going to require us to work together.
Okay. I like it in theory, but practically speaking, I mean, do you see that happening?
I think we're starting to see a shift, yeah.
Okay.
Especially among, younger generations.
Okay.
Who have grown up in a more interconnected world.
Right.
They're more aware of these global challenges.
Okay.
And they're more likely to see themselves as global citizens.
Interesting, yeah. And we do see that.
Right.
In a lot of the movements that are happening right now.
Exactly.
Whether it's climate justice or social justice, there's a sense that we're all in this together.
There is.
That we need to work together to solve these problems. We need new solutions.
We need new ideas.
We need new ways of thinking.
And new ways of working together.
Exactly.
And I think technology can play a really important role in that.
Okay.
Right? DeLuce talks about these platforms.
Yeah.
That can facilitate communication and collaboration on an unprecedented scale.
Interesting.
Connecting people from every corner of the globe.
Okay.
To learn from each other.
Yeah.
To share ideas.
Right.
To work together towards shared goals.
So it's like taking the best aspects of the internet.
Yeah.
Its ability to connect us. Its ability to inform us.
Yep.
And kind of amplifying that.
Exponentially.
Okay, I like it.
Right.
But... and this is maybe the cynic in me again.
Sure.
We also have to be mindful of the potential downside.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
The internet can be a tool for division.
It can.
Just as easily as it can be a tool for connection.
Absolutely.
It can be a tool for manipulation.
It can be.
Just as easily as it can be a tool for empowerment.
So it all comes down to how we use it.
Exactly.
It comes down to our intentions.
It does.
It comes down to the values that we embed in these technologies.
It's not just about the code.
Right.
It's about the culture.
It's about the culture.
That we build around it.
And speaking of building, one of the things that I find really fascinating about DeLuce's vision is that it's not just for humans.
Right.
He's also thinking about how we integrate AI agents into this future.
Into the mix.
Which is mind-blowing.
It is.
When you really stop and think about it.
It's a radical idea.
It is a radical idea.
But I think it's one that we need to start grappling with.
Okay.
Because AI is becoming more sophisticated.
Yeah.
More capable.
It's not going away.
It's not going away.
It's only going to become more prevalent.
Exactly. And so we need to start thinking about how we're going to coexist with these AI agents.
Okay.
How we're going to collaborate with them.
Okay.
How we're going to, maybe even compete with them.
Right.
In some areas.
And what does that even look like?
Right. It's a big question.
It's a huge question, and I don't know if we have the answers yet.
I don't think we do either.
But I think it's important to start asking those questions.
It is, yeah.
Because the sooner we start thinking about these things, the better prepared we'll be for the future that's coming.
Yeah. And DeLuce is really at the forefront of this conversation.
He is.
He's really pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Yeah. And he's not afraid to ask the tough questions.
He's not.
Which is what we need more of.
We do.
In this world.
Yeah.
People who are willing to challenge the status quo.
To think outside the box.
And to imagine a different kind of future.
A better future.
A better future.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this part of our conversation about DeLuce's vision.
Great.
I'm curious to get your take on something.
Yeah.
He talks about AI agents having digital karma.
Right.
Now, that's a concept.
It is a fascinating concept.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
we're not just building machines anymore.
Right.
We're building beings
In a way, yeah.
with their own sense of morality.
Or at least the potential for it.
The potential for it.
Yeah.
And their own set of consequences.
Right, because actions have consequences,
Yeah.
even for AI agents.
Even for AI is...
In this vision of the future.
Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing, and it really gets to the heart of what it means to be human, I think.
It does.
And what it means to create something.
Yeah, because if we're creating AI agents that are capable of learning and adapting
Right.
and making their own decisions,
Yeah.
then we have a responsibility to ensure that those decisions are ethical.
That they're aligned with our values.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility, and it's one that I don't think we can take lightly.
No, we can't.
And it's one that I think DeLuce takes very seriously,
He does.
which is why I'm so drawn to his work.
Yeah, me too.
Because he's not just thinking about the technology, he's
Mhm.
thinking about the implications of that technology.
The ethical implication.
The ethical implications, the societal implications,
The impact on humanity.
the impact on humanity.
Yeah,
He's thinking about the big picture.
he is. He's a big picture thinker.
He is, and we need more of that
We do.
in the world.
We do.
It's fascinating to think about these concepts in action, you know? Like, it's one thing to talk about data unions,
Right.
but it's another thing to actually see them working in the real world.
Because it gives people hope.
It does.
You know?
Yeah.
It shows them that there's a different way of doing things.
That it's not all doom and gloom.
Exactly.
That we're not just headed towards some dystopian future where, you know, the machines take over.
Right, where we're all just data points.
Exactly.
To be exploited.
To be exploited by these big corporations.
Right.
So Vero.co, it's a social network,
Yeah.
right?
It is.
And it's built on this foundation of user privacy
Mhm.
and data ownership.
Exactly.
So how does that actually work in practice?
So on Vera.co, you own your data.
Okay.
You decide who gets to see it.
Okay.
You decide how it's used.
And there are no ads.
That's right, no ads.
So how do they make money?
They have a subscription model. So you pay a small monthly fee
Okay.
to use the platform.
And that's it.
That's it.
Interesting.
No hidden costs, no data harvesting, no manipulation.
So it's really about creating a more ethical
Exactly.
and sustainable
Yeah.
digital ecosystem.
Exactly. It's about putting the power back in the hands of the users.
Okay, I like it. I like
Yeah.
it a lot.
It's been a journey.
It has been a journey, and I think the main takeaway here is that the future is not something to be feared.
Right.
It's something to be shaped.
It is.
And that shaping begins with each and every one of us.
It does.
So go out there, ask those tough questions.
Yeah, challenge the status quo.
Challenge the status quo.
Don't be afraid to think differently.
Think differently.
To imagine a different kind of future.
To imagine a future
Yeah.
that is more just
More equitable,
more equitable,
more abundant
more abundant
for everyone,
for everyone.
not just a select few.
Because the future is not set in stone.
It's not.
It's a blank canvas.
It is.
And we are the artists.
We have the brushes in our hand.
We have the brushes in our hand.
Let's create something beautiful.
Let's create something beautiful.
Love that. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride, everyone. Until next time, keep those questions coming, and most importantly, keep imagining the possibilities. Exactly. Don't just sit around and complain about it.
Right.
Do something about it.
Exactly.
Take action.
Take action.
Right.
Yeah,
The world needs more doers.
it does.
People who are willing to put in the work.
To make their vision a reality.
Exactly.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap things up here.
Sounds good.
But I want to thank you so much for joining us today. To our listeners,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the mind of Griffin